Okay, so today is going to be a fun subject. It is CMCA approved, so you get an hour for this. The written materials are a lot heavier than what we're going to cover today because I like to keep these plain, simple, and to the point, have a few laughs, walk away with everybody having learned something and some things to consider and think about as we think about real life examples of things that are going on right now in our industry. uh, AI makes, I think, all of our heads spin at the rate of progress,
Absolutely.
technologically speaking. But anyways, I'm going to share my screen in a second to get to our presentation. But I thought I'd share with you a couple of other stupid laws. It's kind of something that I got away from for about a year. And I heard some comments from some folks that you really liked it when we started with dumb laws because you wanted to laugh or two. So here we go. I did some research to find out what dumb laws I was missing in Arizona because I was picking on other states and countries because I thought I knew all the stupid laws in Arizona. But I found two, one in Maricopa and one just statewide. This first one, frankly, is a little sexist. I apologize, but it's in Maricopa County. There used to be, just here's the backdrop. There used to be a lot of brothels in Maricopa County, and that was a problem. So, to curb prostitution, they adopted a law that said seven unrelated women cannot live together. I mean, well, pretty dumb. Okay, next one. Uh, I think this one's funny. You may not think it's funny. When I was born, we were dirt poor and we lived in Apache Junction. And we lived in a trailer that my parents bought from a pig farmer. And it was an old rundown trailer. And they cleaned my room out. So I lived in this room in the trailer where he had a pig pen. Well, under Arizona law, you are prohibited from feeding pigs garbage. I don't know why. It doesn't define what garbage is. It just says you cannot feed pigs garbage. Anyways, dumb law. Okay, so let me share my screen. As we get into the topic for the day, hopefully you can all see Goodman Law, AI in Arizona's. I think that's what you're going to see. I think that's what it's on. Can I just get a chat in there to make sure you can see AI in Arizona HOAs? Perfect. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Matt. Okay, so like I said, this is some pretty dry material that you need for your CMCA accreditation, but it goes through some bullet points of pitfalls, powerful governance tool, all that stuff. I'm going to fast forward a bit and start with um, risks. Risk number one. Before I get to this, I would imagine every single one of you have used AI in our space in the HOA world for whatever it is. And probably a common one like ChatGPT, for example. I actually have ChatGPT open on my other screen we're going to go to in a minute for some actual examples of HOA questions that ChatGPT answered for me that I did last night in preparation for tonight's meeting. But I know that several of you and all of you probably have used ChatGPT at some point to ask questions or to upload some document to review it for you and answer some questions for you, and so on and so forth. Well, this is the biggest risk associated with using AI in the context of legal documents. Now, I'm not just saying this because I'm an attorney and I'm worried about uh, work leaving a law firm and my revenue going down. I'm not. Actually, AI is fantastic. It just increases the workload for everyone. But it's very, very, very important to understand that if you're going to use AI and then provide that information to your boards, it is and can be construed as the unauthorized practice of law. And if you get it wrong, which AI does do quite a bit, because our area is so niche, it can come back to haunt. Now, admittedly, like before even AI, lots of boards ask managers questions. Hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And a response back could be, well, your CCNR say this, your CCNR say that. You can't really do this. You can't do that. It's kind of a general industry thing that's been going on. Is that the unauthorized practice of law? I get that we are off topic a little bit. We'll come right back, but uh, I'm not going to answer that. How about that? I'll just do this. Okay. So, unauthorized practice of law is a big concern, and it depends on the amount of what you're doing. If you're just asking it to prep a letter or to prep a quick response to a homeowner in regards to their question, no big deal. But if you're actually engaging in legal work through a use of an AI tool, it is a problem and it creates significant risk. Let me give you and by the way, as we're going through this, if you have a funny example of sharing where, or even an example of when you used AI and you got it wrong, feel free to put it in the chat. Just know that whatever's in the chat, whatever I'm saying, it's not attorney-client privileged. So please, please, please don't disclose any client confidences or board confidences. You can put it in as kind of a general thing. Okay. So I'm going to switch my screens now over to ChatGPT and show you a couple of these examples. So here's one. We're going to start with an HOA amended CC&R inquiry. Okay. Now, the question here is, can my HOA amend the CC&Rs to prohibit short-term rentals? I get this question a lot, and I'm sure all of you on this call, if you or Zoom meeting, if you've been a manager for more than a couple of years, you've been asked this question and you've talked about it in the management company, whether the lawyers, all of us deal with this. It's a common question. That's why I thought I'd put it in here, because I already know what the answer is, and many of you, if you've got time in this space, know what that answer is going to be. What do you think ChatGPT says? Yes. Yes, your homeowners association generally can amend its CCNRs to prohibit or limit short-term rentals. And then it gives a caveat. This, by the way, I typed in last night, but certain legal and procedural requirements must be met. They have to follow the amendment procedures, which is like, the percentage requirements. You would think in your mind, the percentage requirements at the end of the document. Then it gets into how we distinguish between existing owners and future owners and their reasonable expectations. But it stops there. It says yes. Now I say, let's get specific because this is a problem. Sometimes we ask a question and we don't put the state. So the AI doesn't know where to go look. It just gives you a general answer and then you use it if it's Arizona. Taking a step back before we just keep scrolling down. Under Arizona law, both the Condo Act and the Planned Communities Act state very clearly that you can only restrict rentals if it is where? In the CC&Rs, and including basically time limitations. It says it right there, time limitations, black and white. So if your CC&Rs are not clear that you can adopt time limitations or that they don't have time limitations, in other words, the CC&Rs say no unit owner shall rent their unit less than 30 days. Well, that's clear. It's right there in the CC&Rs. You can't do Airbnb. Okay, cool. If it just says you can't rent the unit to less than the entire unit, no time limitations. Well, now can we amend the CC&Rs to put in a time limitation per Arizona law? If you just stopped here, you'd walk away going, oh yeah, we can do it. No problem. The next question is, this is for AZ HOA law. Let's see if it actually got a case that's an important case called Callaway. Callaway is the Arizona Supreme Court decision that came down a couple of years ago now that dealt with CC&R amendments. It's causing all sorts of problems for us. And Callaway held that notwithstanding the percentage requirement in the declaration, you cannot amend CC&Rs or affirmative covenants of the CC&Rs, which are the do's and don'ts, which short-term rentals would be. You cannot do that unless it's reasonable and foreseeable to do it. And what's reasonable and foreseeable? Well, we've already had Court of Appeals decisions come down now that basically says if you're not going to get unanimous consent for those kinds of amendments, forget about it. So we have to stop the amendment process and look at adopting rules that make doing it a little harder, right? If any of you have been part of this process, you know the process, or you've been advised the process by all of us HOA lawyers. Let's see what it says here. In Arizona, an HOA can restrict or even prohibit short-term rentals, but only if it's recorded in the CC&Rs. Okay, cool. It just quoted essentially what I just told you, and it links the statute, 1806.01. That's for planned communities, and 1260.01 is for condos. Perfect. So far, so good, right? And then it says it tightened the rule in 2022 by a case called what? Ooh, it said, look, Callaway v. Calabria is right here. Okay. And it even cites from some random open source Callaway v. Calabria Ranch. And then it goes into, so far, so good, right? And then it goes into recent Court of Appeals decisions, follow this logic. And then it gives you all this stuff. This Village of Oak Creek Association v. Bonham. Guess what? If you go try to click on this Village of Oak Creek Association v. Bonham, guess what you'll see? ChatGPT makes shit up. It makes up case names. It makes up holdings. Sounds really good. It could be the correct law, but it makes shit up. So, and like I said, oftentimes, quite a bit, it gets it absolutely wrong, like the exact wrong answer. So let's look at another one. Okay. So in this case, essentially it was kind of going there. The big, huge pitfall for you would have been at the beginning, it didn't mention anything about Callaway or any type of restrictions, but even how it explained it as ChatGPT with Callaway, it still leaves you saying, yeah, you can amend it. Well, it didn't get into the actual Court of Appeals decisions using Callaway on short-term rental restrictions. It cited this random Village of Oak Creek Association Bonham case, which wasn't dispositive to the issue that we're talking about. So you take this and the board gets all these inklings that they can just amend it. And I've had seen this happen where now they go out and amend or have ChatGPT draft the provisions for them. I've had boards draft the notice and the ballot and the amended CC&R provision and even start the process because one of their, unfortunately, board members was an attorney and thought they could save some money. Well, it ended up biting them in the ass. Okay. So what about foreclosure? There's been some recent changes in Arizona on foreclosure. Let's see this one. And like I said, if you've got a good example of something as we continue this conversation, feel free to put it in there. Here's another one. So is ChatGPT going to get it right or is it going to get it wrong? I don't know. An owner in our community owes $500 in assessments. The board wants to foreclose on them. Can we? Without getting into it yet, can you foreclose on $500 for assessments? The answer is yes, but it has to be ripe based on what the statute says. There has to be a certain amount or you have to wait a certain number of months before you can foreclose, right? So let's see if ChatGPT gets it right because the statute on this just changed this year. And also notice we didn't say Arizona. Most states allow blah, 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 right? And then it gets into what you probably are familiar with, $1,200 or delinquent for more than a year. That's the old statute, right? It also says the association may need to record a lien before you start with the foreclosure process. No, you don't. A lot of places we don't record a lien in Arizona because it's an automatic lien. That's how it's always been since The statutes were adopted. See how it's confusing, maybe some other jurisdictions outside of Arizona? And then I keep scrolling down and I say, nope, this is for Arizona. I do that because I already know that. I don't know if you do though. Just keep that in mind. It's very important. If you're going to ask it to help you with general things, if it's for legal opinion, obviously, if you're going to use ChatGPT to figure to just to kind of get a good idea, fine, whatever. But do not send that to a board or tell a board based on that. That's unauthorized practice of law. You're going to get yourself in trouble. Make sure you bounce it by the attorney for the association. And a lot of us, if you just bounce over a quick thing, we'll reply back with, yeah, that's not a problem. That is a problem. Or if you want an official opinion, great. We'll flat fee quote you or whatever, right? So now let's move it to Arizona. Short answer, no. In Arizona, you can't foreclose on a home for $500 delinquency. Well, I already said you can in Arizona, and you absolutely can, even under the new law. So if you stop there, problem. It goes on to say it may proceed only if the owner's been delinquent for at least 18 months or 10,000 or more, whichever happens first. That's actually correct, right? If it's a condominium association, the current statute still uses the older threshold of at least 12 months or delinquent for $1,200 or more. So 500 still doesn't qualify. See where it's screwed up? Because the Condo Act is the same thing. It's assuming it hasn't changed in the Condo Act, it's 12 months or $1,200, whichever occurs first. Watch this. If we go over here to statute search, so here's my website. You can go right to statute search, gun Arizona, type in foreclose. Let's go right to the statute. Well, I'm going to actually go to the AZ leg statute. So you can see it straight from the legislature's website, Title 33. Foreclosure is 12 in the 1200s. So we scroll down to 12s. And we get down to, let's see, 12, 20. Why am I not seeing it? Associations, lien rights. You probably see it. My eyesight's going bad. Oh, where in the crap is it? Common expense liens, 12, there it is, 1256. Sorry about that. Okay. Look, whichever occurs first. Whichever occurs first. Did ChatGPT get that right? No, it didn't. It's wrong. Okay. And I showed you two examples, and these are my first two from last night. So we're 2 for 2 with improper information. Next one, condo leak. With all these rains that came through, all of us are getting all these questions. I would bet some of you asked ChatGPT or some other AI about leaks. Okay, HOA had a roof leak. It damaged some stuff inside the unit of our condominium. Now the unit owner is demanding that we pay for it. Must we? CC&Rs are very clear that all the stuff inside the unit is the unit owner's responsibility. I tried to draft this like a board member would without the legalese, or like you might without the legalese. So let's see what it says. In most cases involving condos, responsibility for repairing depends on two things: what the CC&Rs are, and whether the HOA is negligent. Okay. If it's based on the CC&Rs, it says right here that no, the HOA's duty in that case would be to repair the roof itself, not the consequences inside the unit. Okay, pure CCNR analysis. Okay. But there's one major exception. If the owner can prove the HOA was negligent, the HOA may have to pay. So anytime we see homeowners suing boards, and I shouldn't say anytime because that's an absolute, but when we get these lawsuits where an owner sues the association for damage to their unit from a roof leak, most of the time we'll see a negligence claim in there. Sometimes they'll list both the breach of contract and negligence, which in and of itself typically can be improper. And we can get one of those counts dismissed because it's either or. But bottom line is negligence is a claim they can bring in that scenario, and they will bring, and one in which insurance companies will, if there is an actual problem, could break out a checkbook. But they still have to prove negligence. They have to prove that you didn't meet your duties, that you didn't maintain it properly, blah, 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 which can be a hard thing to do. So, yeah, I mean, they could, but it's going to be a long-winded case. And if it's only negligence, guess who does not get their attorney fees? So we always say if a homeowner sues or if the HOA sues for over the CCNRs, it's called a breach of contract case. The winner of that typically will be awarded their attorney fees. Negligence is not a contract case. It's a tort case is what we like to call it. And if it's only negligence, there's an argument to be had that you can't get your fees either party, which goes to your favor if it's an insurance defense matter. Now, admittedly, there's some nuances there, like actions, whether the action arises in contract. And we can dive into the weeds later in another class if you really want to get into the legal mumbo jumbo. But the bottom line is ChatGPT here on this question, I think got it right for the most part. So we're only batting one of three right now. And I asked a couple more questions too. Um, and it's my opinion that ChatGPT only got one of five right. That is why it can be scary to use ChatGPT for HOA related items. So going back to our risks, not only is it the unauthorized practice of law, but it can give you bad information. This is why it is unethical for attorneys to allow clients to get legal advice without oversight. So in other words, if I have AI internally, which we do, it's within our attorney-client privilege bubble that uses all sorts of AI, which is we've developed, which is way better than ChatGPT because what I have is like light years ahead of ChatGPT because it's designed specifically to tag the actual cases. It's designed specifically to give you the analysis. And many of you, if you've ever done business with us, you see in our answers back, um, you may not, well, our fee agreement says it is, but a lot of it's based on AI, which is why we're able to do this on flat fee for a whole lot less than what you maybe used to have to pay for. Um, it is the wave of the future. Law firms have to get in check. But the problem is, even then, even with our tools, it gets it wrong. So it's extremely important for attorneys too to make sure you review every word, every comma, every sentence to confirm that the case law is correct if you're going to be doing case law. There are attorneys that have had AI do pleadings that you file with the court. Some of them never reviewed at all, and they literally the AI on using ChatGPT. You probably read about this in the newspaper, read about it later at some point. Cited made up cases, just made cases up, kind of like what you just saw in that example. And those attorneys were ethically sanctioned. So this is another big, big, big risk. If you just upload, because you saw here on ChatGPT, this little button here, boom, upload file, right? Oops, I better cancel that out. Upload file. If you click on that upload and you upload CCNRs or you upload a homeowner's delinquency letter or you upload anything, you're putting it in the cloud. If you don't have an agreement with your client, you can do that. With your board, you can do that. That is a problem, especially when we're talking about executive information. especially when we're talking about FHA disability reasonable requests, accommodation requests. I had a manager upload the reasonable accommodation request to ChatGPT to ask about a couple questions before kicking it off to the attorney. Bad, bad, bad. Don't do it. If somebody ever found out about that, it violates all sorts of things. So the upload tool for documents, fantastic, but there's a time and a place. Don't do it. If you're going to upload a document, water it down, remove all proper names, remove any identification marks to the association. So it's really a general kind of document. And even then, if you're just trying to toy with it, it's going to take you 30, 40 minutes to make sure every word, every proper noun is removed from that document. Sometimes if it's a bigger document, you just upload the standard CC&Rs that are already recorded with the public recorder site, not as big a risk. For attorneys, it is because it's still client records that we can't disclose. But for non-attorneys, maybe not so much because it's public record. But dude, you start uploading other executive information or confidential information to a public AI form, you're running a massive risk. Don't do it. Okay. Hopefully that scares you enough to see some actual examples of where it's great. And like I said, it's the wave of the future. It's not going away. We're using it. If you use it responsibly, it's a fantastic, fantastic tool. And I'm sure all of you have had that experience of it being a fantastic tool. And perhaps some of you have seen potentially where may have not realized at the time, but now you do, the risk and the pitfalls that can go if you use it the wrong way that can increase the liability for you and your company. Okay. There are AI tools that do keep things completely confidential. In the attorney space, obviously, that's a huge thing. It's a huge, huge ethical obligation that we as attorneys have. That's like being an attorney 101. And we have those things in place and the safeguards in place. But when you're just sitting there trying to just get through the day because you got a billion things going on, you really, frankly, probably don't have the time to do that unless your executive team on the management company has looked up some of these AI platforms that could potentially do that for you. I know in your space, there's several of them like HOAI, Stan. I've looked at them. I'm not going to comment as to whether I think they're compliant or not. I think they're fantastic tools. But there are some pitfalls. If you have questions specific about third-party AI plugins, please talk to me. I've advised management companies about AI plugin platforms, and I can give you some advice about what's good, what's not, what the pitfalls are, what they aren't. Just because I'd hate to see the management company sued for use of those AI plugins when you're disclosing in an unauthorized sense confidential information or handling the data incorrectly. So risk number three, we talked about it. It's the bias. It can be it's obviously accuracy. We just said that in the legal space at least. And it's potentially the consistency. What I noticed on consistency, for example, this is my personal opinion, so I can't get hit with defamation, but ChatGPT 5 is worse at certain things than ChatGPT 3. Let me show you an actual example. We're going to go completely off the farm by me asking it to do something that it used to do a fantastic job with. Okay, so let's get a new space here. Create an image of me as a dog with a bone. Oh, that's stupid. Create an image of me as a lawyer in court, but make me a superhero with the power to bring down lightning. My son and I just watched Thor, so I guess that's why it's at the forefront. Let's see what it does, okay? While it's doing this, I'm going to actually show you this is a good depiction from an illustration point of view of, oh, could you please upload a clear photo of yourself? And I'm doing this on purpose because, and we're going to close on this note because on the consistency piece, you're going to see the difference between what the earlier versions of ChatGPT could put together versus the existing version of 5. And unfortunately, I think in this niche HOA space, this illustration is a good example of the legal aspect too. The difference between 3, while it's still doing this, the difference between 3 and 5 is 5 can actually create a much, much better image, but you have to give it better prompts. It's almost like you have to understand what it's looking for. Whereas 3 and 4.5 or 4, it just kind of assumed what you were asking to create a really cool image. So I'm going to stop my screen share for a second because I need to go grab an image that it actually did. So give me 1 second while it's working in the background. While I'm doing that, do any of you have any questions for me about AI? Because like I told you before, I like to keep these limited to about 30, 40 minutes. So we're going to end on this illustration and to show you compare and contrast. So if you've got a question, put it in the chat. If you can't, if you want to just say it out loud, just raise your hand and I'll see if I can throw you in. Okay. Let me share my screen again. Here we go. This is an example of a logo that was put together for a fire company in Hawaii. That looks super cool, right? Blue Honu Fire. It's got a blue Honu. Blue Honu is a thing, by the way. Honu's Hawaiian for turtle, right? Blue Honus are like super rare, super lucky. It even put together like these islands down here in the lower left-hand corner. Super cool. I love this logo, right? That's ChatGPT 4. Okay. Now let's see what it did for our, oh, it didn't even do it. It just said, here's an image of your superhero lawyer commanding lightning in court. It's not even doing it, which is another problem. Like I keep hitting this refresh button and it's not doing it. So let me just do this, redo this. Okay, so while it's doing that, I think I see in the chat, Matt, you said yes. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself if you can. If you can't, let me see if I can grab you. Christy, are you still on? Can you let's try to ask Matt to unmute. Okay, there we go. Matt, I just asked you to unmute yourself.
I was just saying yes to the fact that he could hear you at the beginning of the meeting.
If
Yeah.
you're talking, we can't hear you, but it does show you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
I can.
All right.
Yeah, I
I
was
can't
just
hear you
saying
on my
yes at the beginning
computer.
when he asked the question about whether or not we could
Let
see
me
the
take off my
screen.
earphones. Okay, well, can you try to say something again?
And Matt, I think you might be able to hear us now.
Yeah, I just said that I was saying yes at the beginning when asked if we could see the screen.
Oh, okay, great. You can all see ChatGPT putting together this superhero with lightning.
Yes.
It's crazy, right? Look at the difference between what it's starting to put together and what that blue Honu looked like. And like I was saying earlier, this example illustrates what I'm trying to relay with the legal, especially when you're dealing with niche. The newer versions of AI right now are much, much better and more sophisticated if you know what you're asking. But if you aren't specific, it gives you stuff like this. Now, that's cool as a comic book thing, right? But that's not what I asked for. I actually like this logo way more. Like, if I asked it, okay, watch, let's make me a logo for Goodman Law. I'm an HOA attorney. And this will be the last thing because I'd love to see what happens here. And sorry about that and technical difficulties. I thought that I wasn't hearing anyone when I was connected to my iPod, but apparently,
Yeah. Stacy said in the chat, look in your library and that other picture might be in there.
okay. It also does, under this new version, I get this quite a bit. And I know I've got a good connection because we're all on together. So, anywho, you understand the point. And I'm not seeing any other questions from anyone about AI, but feel free, like, I'm going to conclude, I guess I'm going to just conclude today's presentation by saying, hopefully all of you have seen and realized from real world examples the the beauty of AI, the potential of AI, but also the real risk of using it in our space unless you clearly understand what you're doing. And it is a tool, especially in the legal context, it's much easier to just defer to that. And I know lots of HOA lawyers that use this, just pull up ChatGPT, blah, 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 blah. And if you cut and paste it in and you edit it, and when you do the questions and you remove all the names, and so it's a general question and it's a fantastic tool to help you write something and edit it, make sure it gets it right, and then send it to the client. Fantastic. No problem. You probably saved yourself an hour or two over what it used to be when we actually had to start from scratch. Lawyers are no longer authors, we're editors. And I think the same thing's true of every space. And all, as you see these AI tools being implemented, I didn't hear because had it on my these that weren't picking up anything or comments from anyone if they tried to unmute. But if you yourself are plugging in AI tools for your management company, I think it's very important if you're an executive to get some advice on that to ensure that your safeguards are in place. And if you want to bounce it off of an HOA lawyer, that you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I just give you my 2 cents. I don't charge for that kind of stuff. So, anywho, thank you so much for joining us today. To Christie's points, you'll be seeing a certificate of attendance will be sent out within a week for everyone that attended today. This is being recorded and we'll be posting it on our channel. So you'll be able to share this with whoever you want to share it with and let your friends and other CMCA folks know if they want an hour of credit for 40 minutes to go ahead and click on that and get the written materials so that you got that. You can review those. Okay. All righty. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. It's good seeing all of you. Take care. Bye-bye.